When a literary superstar, we're talking over 3 million books sold, pivots to a completely new genre, you know people are going to talk. But with Kate Quinn's big fantasy debut, The Astral Library, the conversation isn't just talk. No, it's a full-blown debate, and it's splitting critics right down the middle. So what's really going on with The Astral Library? Is it a magical love letter to books, or is it something else entirely? Think about it for a second. What book would you live in? If you could literally escape into the pages of any story, which one would it be? I mean, it's a question every single one of us book lovers has daydreamed about. And that is the irresistible, magical promise at the very heart of this novel. And this is the dream, right? This is the promise that has so many readers absolutely buzzing. The book is sold to us as this whimsical, enchanting fantasy, a total sanctuary for anyone who has ever found their real home between the covers of a book. It's a powerful and deeply relatable place to start. So to really get to the bottom of this deep divide, here's how we're going to break it all down. We're going to look at the author's huge career change, explore the magical parts that everyone seems to agree on, then we'll dissect that central controversy, and finally, we'll try to help you figure out if this book is your next great escape or a political sermon in disguise. Okay, first things first, you have to understand who we're talking about here. Kate Quinn is not some debut writer just testing the waters. She is commercial royalty, an absolute powerhouse in the world of historical fiction, known for one bestseller after another. So why on earth jump to fantasy? Well, it's a huge creative risk for sure, but you could also see it as a pretty smart strategic move, tapping into this massive market for fantasy that wants to talk about our modern world. The real question is, does that risk actually pay off? And if you want to understand just how big that risk is, just look at this number: over 3 million copies sold. That is a massive, incredibly dedicated fan base that she built by telling a very specific kind of story. The million-dollar question for her and for her publisher is pretty simple. Will that audience follow her into a magical library? And you can see here, her track record is just stellar. Her historical fiction novels have ridiculously high ratings. Now, the early ratings for The Astral Library are still really strong, don't get me wrong, but you can see they're just a little bit lower. And that small difference, well, it hints at the friction we're talking about, that gap between what our fans have come to expect and this brand new direction she's taking. All right, so let's put the controversy on hold for just a second, because despite the heated debate, there are parts of this book that have gotten almost universal praise. Let's dig into the elements that won over even some of the book's harshest critics. And what's so wild is how clear the consensus is here. You look at reviews from both sides of the argument, and they all point to these same things. The core idea of living in books, this fan-favorite dragon librarian character, a really authentic depiction of poverty, and some great positive representation of a plus-size heroine. One critic even called them, pretty bluntly, the actually good bits. Let's just zoom in on one of those authentic details for a moment: poverty math. Quinn gets a ton of praise for capturing this brutal, anxious reality of not having enough money. Reviewers called her depiction painfully accurate. It's a detail like this that really grounds all of the magic in a very real and very human struggle. Okay, so if the world building is magical and some characters are so beloved, where does all this division come from? Well, it all centers on one major criticism: that the book's political message isn't just there in the background, it's a political sledgehammer. And this slide, this really captures the two warring interpretations of the novel perfectly. Is it a charming, whimsical love letter to the power of stories? Or is it actually a protest manifesto that's just using fantasy as a clever disguise for a modern political agenda? This is the exact point where readers completely diverge. So, on one side, you have reviews like this one. These are the readers who see the book as this delightful, charming gift. It's just a celebration of the joy and the escape that reading can give us. For them, the message is universal. It's about the power of libraries. Simple as that. But then you have the other side. And this sharp critique just nails their frustration. They felt the book crossed a line from being a story into being a sermon. This reviewer felt like they were reading a fundraising appeal for the American Library Association. For these readers, the direct lectures on real-world issues like book bans just completely shattered the fantasy world they came for. And look, this isn't just a feeling a few people had. The data from early reviews actually backs this up. Nearly a third of the critics, 32%, specifically used words like preachy or heavy-handed when talking about the book's political commentary.
That's a really significant and recurring theme in the negative feedback. So, what does this heavy-handed messaging actually feel like on the page? Well, these critics say it feels like a modern-day Twitter argument was just copy-pasted directly into a fantasy novel. They point to dialogue like this, which they argue feels less like something a character would say and more like a political talking point, with one-dimensional villains who are only there to be easily knocked down.
So, with these two completely different takes on the very same book, how in the world do you decide if it's for you? Well, we can actually use all these critiques to build a pretty clear guide. Based on all the feedback, the audience seems to split really cleanly. You are probably going to absolutely love this book if you enjoy fantasy that gets right into modern politics, and if you're the kind of person who geeks out over literary Easter eggs more than a tight plot. On the other hand, you might find yourself in the camp of frustrated readers if you're really looking for pure escapism and you prefer your messages woven subtly into a story, not delivered like a lecture. So when you boil it all down, the crucial point is this. Your enjoyment of the Astral Library probably won't come down to the quality of the prose or the magic system. It's going to come down to your personal philosophy on what fiction is for. Do you want it to be a mirror, reflecting our current battles back at us? Or do you want it to be a door, a way to escape them entirely? And really, that's the bigger question the Astral Library forces us to confront. In a world that feels more divided than ever, does fantasy have a responsibility to engage, to take a side, or is its most important job to provide a sanctuary from all of that? There's no easy answer here. And that, in the end, is what makes this book one of the most fascinating literary conversations of the year.